Hello, and welcome to episode 48 of the What If South is Up podcast, where we dive into the art of world building and storytelling with a what if lens. Together, we explore, dissect, and expand the speculative and fantasy worlds of our own making. Blending a bit of wisdom and a dash of whimsy, we aim to spark creativity for ourselves and for you. Get ready to reimagine and dig deeper as we journey from what if to what's possible. In other words, how to wing it like an author. My name is Derek Hall, creator of the world of Ketra, which serves as a home to a young adult sword and sorcery titled Crimson Prophecy. I've also published a dystopian sci-fi game-lit adventure titled 10 Levels Down. And with me is Christina Lefebvre.
And I'm in the middle of building my first fantasy speculative world, Cobb, a magical parallel Earth where colonization never happened in the Americas. And unlike both my co-hosts, I am yet unpublished. And most recently, I've been struggling with post-primary education in my world. What about you, Meg?
So I write a couple of different worlds. Right now, my major focus is a dark political sci-fantasy that's setting the stage for magic to war with technology. That's the Tapestry series. And balancing science fiction and fantasy and building those worlds out separately has been interesting.
Yay!
Absolutely.
All right, well, to kick things off, and before we see which what if question chance brings us, let's do a potion or maybe an elixir. Check, what are you drinking right now, Xtina?
Straight from Alexia's Trading Post. Alexia's my world. I'm drinking a Firesmith cider. In other words, actually, it's a citizen cider. Nothing big. I'm still trying to get my house sorted after moving all the things into it, and I'll be shocked if I get it done by February. What about you, Derek?
Well, I made it almost 5 years, but I finally caught the crown virus, and I'm just starting to kick the dregs of that, so no elixirs for me, just water. Other than trying not to die from said virus, working, and all of that lovely essential life activity, every available moment right now is dedicated to trying to fill my freezer.
We were just talking about that with my friends. What are you drinking, Meg?
Oh, it's tea night over here. It's nothing special. I go for those the Yogi brand teas. They're always good. They always have licorice in them.
You know,
They
that
are
sounds
good.
like an elixir to me.
Yeah.
More of a
It is
potion.
a blend.
It could be a potion or elixir. Yes, it does good things. Okay, now that we've got our elixirs in hand, let's talk about world smithing. What breakthroughs, techniques, or tips have sparked new life into your world building story or lore recently? Meg, what do you have for today's World Smiths workshop?
So I am really focusing on political tension these days. I've been doing a lot of research into like Cold War misinformation tactics. So that's something that I have been kind of using to build out my world and the political situation in my world. I've also been looking at the gateway process. This is research I've done into. It's kind of like a conspiracy theory about like using the mind to travel to different destinations. It was during Cold War times as well. So I'm playing with a little bit of that and throwing it into my world and my story. And the other research that I have been doing is less exciting, more like classic seafaring and learning about like how a ship was run and operated back in the wonder years.
Hmm. Well, that
I
sounds
did that
interesting.
research.
Yeah,
You
you
did.
sure did. I should talk to you. Speaking of which, Derek, what are you looking into these days?
Um, Honestly, it's not particularly current. I haven't really had time or mental bandwidth to work on my stuff for a little bit because I've just been trying not to die. But something I learned early on is when you're writing, you have to keep your geography consistent, and it's a lot harder than people think. So make a map and reference it as you write, because if you don't, people will notice.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's my tip.
What I've been workshopping is really focusing on writing compelling scenes where each scene is mired in that world, in my world. Um, it's it all stories will any story will fall flat if the scene doesn't speak not only the story but speaks of the world. So I've been really trying to focus on how to write a really good scene that showcases my world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard to balance, to strike a balance where it's a really good scene that showcases the world without it being like you're shoving the world down someone's throat. I've actually had to learn this a little bit because I didn't think my world was very complicated. I didn't.
Hmm.
And after the release, I found that people thought my world was very complex and complicated, and there could have been a little bit more of a slow tiptoe into it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's true. I think we could also go the other. I would like to go the other way as well, where the scene is this scene. And when I'm talking about scene, I'm not talking about just story structure here. I'm talking about the stage that they're standing on. So I'm writing this scene, people saying things, doing things on a stage, and I've got to just put something in, just a nuance, just something in that would show that this would not fit in any other world. It's if I tried to write this scene, this place, it doesn't have to be over the head, right? Like you were saying, it doesn't have to be complex, but really trying to do it with a nuance
Little
and finding
details go a long way.
nuance goes a long
Hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're right, Meg. There is a great balance to it. It's a lot of learning.
Hey, I'm learning. Excuse me. Like I said, I've been sick. Learning is what we do.
I heard a little
Yep.
Kermit in there.
Oh no. Um,
You should just do the rest of the episode like that.
no, 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 no. I
Ah,
died
the
a little
Muppet,
inside just doing
the
that.
Muppets episode is past.
Our Muppets episode was awesome.
I feel bad for Eric
Oh,
having to be involved in that, honestly.
oh, that was great. I loved every second of listening to it from afar, uninvolved.
Pretty sure that episode shortened my lifespan noticeably. Let me get a drink so I don't sound like a damn frog. As world builders, it is essential to keep our creative skills sharp by exploring other realms and stories. And since our last episode, which world have you been visiting and through which portal did you enter? And most importantly, what did you take away from it? Meg?
Oh, so I am midway into a couple of books. I'm balancing one on audio and one physical. Um, so I am listening to The Blade itself. Oh man, I am actually really enjoying this world, and it's one that has been built out very slowly. You don't get dropped into the thick of it. The political situation is tense, but you're doled out everything little bit by little bit. So that's
Mm-hmm.
been really good, and that's more of like a classic style fantasy. And then A Brightness Long Ago, I'm really fresh into it. I'm picking it up more for a prose standpoint because it was recommended by a friend. And that world is very unique as well because it's a very beautiful kind of like Italian Renaissance world. So it's different than what I'm used to reading, and that's been very fun.
Oh, that's interesting.
Thanks, Tina. What about you?
I've been exploring a modern Robin esque world through the old TV series Leverage. Um, and what I love most about this show is the twist at the end. Out of every single episode, they give you those little video snippets that reveal how what seemed like a fiasco was always exactly the plan. And I wish I could pull that off in my story.
Right.
Just everyone thinks it's a fiasco, but then to be able to pull the pull the reader away and say, "No, this is exactly what I meant to do,"
Right.
without making it seem, I don't know, formulaic, or not formulaic, but made, I don't know, too good to be true.
Yeah, I've
That's
always loved heist stories, but I don't think I could ever
Mhm.
write one. I'm just not that smart.
It just takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of planning.
a lot
Yeah.
of planning,
Yeah. But like
and
the
you have to know what to say. Yeah,
Ocean's 11, Italian Job kind of stuff has always intrigued me, and I would love to come up with something like that, but I don't have it in me.
you just have to know what to say and when, and you're learning that with your latest book, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's definitely like a plotter mentality. It's not as easy to pants your way into a heist. It's like you have to
Hmm.
begin with the twist in mind.
I don't care what you say, you're not going to convert me.
So, what world building have you been involved in or dived into, Derek?
Honestly, I've just been revisiting Science Gone Wrong off the coast of Costa Rica, by way of the Jurassic Park movies, because I have loved Crichton for decades, and
Hmm.
I was in the mood. So that's where I'm at. It's definitely a study in world building in a very strange way because it's the real world, but it's also
Yep.
fiction, and it's something that could happen, is
Hmm.
actively happening freaking 30 years after the books were written. But it's also one of those things that's just barely out of the realm of realistic, to the point where it makes you stop and look and go, why did I believe that this could happen 20 years
Yeah.
ago?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting study in a way. Books
Sure.
are better as always, but movies are
Mhm.
more accessible right now. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. Oh, that and Peacock has a new series that I've been watching that is absolutely amazing. This I don't know how to relate this to world building, but it definitely works for character building. Um, Day of the Jackal is freaking fantastic.
And
Um,
where's that?
it's on Peacock.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a Ludlum esque, so Born, kind of similar to like the Jason Bourne, Born Identity, all that kind of thing, assassin story.
Hmm.
But the acting is absolutely phenomenal, and the characters have amazing arcs. And I'm only 5 episodes in,
And it
so
takes place in like a modern setting.
it is a modern setting, mostly in Europe. So modern, not modern. I mean, modern day, but yeah, it takes place in Europe, and it's just the character arcs are stunning, and the acting is stunning. And if it doesn't sweep every award it possibly can, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Hmm.
It's extremely good.
Peacocks really impressed me, honestly. I feel like they don't have as much, and maybe just because I've spent too much time on the other apps, they don't have as much stuff. But the stuff that they do produce ends up being pretty unique and pretty good.
I initially just got it to watch the Olympics, and I haven't canceled it yet because I keep finding more stuff that I want to watch.
You should watch Twisted Metal.
It's on my list. I
Yeah,
haven't been in the mood for it, but it's
it.
on my list.
I was surprised at how good how into it I was because I thought
Yeah.
I don't know. So what was the one that everyone got really into that was based off a video game recently that came on Prime? It was
Fallout.
Fallout. Yep, everyone was super into Fallout, and I like Twisted Metal better than Fallout.
Oh, that's saying
Oh,
something. Fallout,
interesting.
amazing.
Fallout was good, but some of the moments were a little too cringe. And the thing with Twisted Metal was that they made it cringe on purpose, like it was slapstick.
Mm,
It was supposed to be.
I have a
Um,
lower tolerance for that sort of thing. Like
okay.
I don't really do most of the like the mainstream comedy movies just because they're kind of dumb. But I'll check it out. Give it a shot.
Can't hurt to give it a go.
Yeah, can't hurt to try. Worst I can do is turn it off.
All right,
Excuse me.
let's press onward. It's time for wordsmith darlings. Each of us will share a few words that paint a vivid picture of another world. And it could be a passage from another author that we admire, or perhaps one that missed the mark, or something we wrote. And these might be snippets we're proud of, or dead darlings that didn't make the final cut. So if you are ready, let's dive into some world building wins and woes. Ixtina, what do you got?
This is actually from a short story, not finished. Um, Here we go. There was nothing left. He could see neither tree nor building all the way to the horizon. The ground was charred and the sky red from the smoke. No blue, no green, no beauty was left. Holding tightly to his upper thigh, he wished now that he had paid better attention in the first aid for wizards class.
Interesting.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Meg?
All right, so I am going to go with the theme here. I had one here from my own work, but it's not so world building. So I'm going to pull up this one from A Brightness Long Ago, which is my current read. The one that I said is very like Italian Renaissance. And it is the sailors say that the rain misses the cloud even as it falls through light or dark and into the sea. I miss her like that as I fall through my life, through time, the chaos of our time.
Hmm.
It's
Dang.
just so beautifully worded, and it gives the whole like vibe of just like the artsiness and the scene. I don't know,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
the book itself, like it's written like that. The whole book's written like that.
Oof.
Really lovely.
Yeah, that's impressive. I
Yeah,
try to
that's a
talk like
goal.
that and it just sounds stupid.
Speaking of sounding stupid, Derek, what do you got?
Gee, thanks.
Do it in the Kermit voice.
Why do I put up with you? All right. Well, so I have one from my Gamelit story, 10 levels down. Is if you lived here, you knew that it was best to move with purpose. The Protectorate didn't care about the people who lived this far down.
That far down.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yep, yep.
Yep. Yep.
Yep, yep, yep.
Now, normally, this would be the time when we play that our favorite game, the World Builders Roulette, where we roll the dice and we play in a world, or we take a scenario and add it to our world. But today, if you haven't already noticed, we're slightly pivoting the format of the show to be a bit more strongly focused on world building. So we thought it would be a great idea if we all kind of discussed what exactly do we mean by world building? What is world building? And what isn't world building? So we're going to do that instead of the question today. So Derek, why don't you start? What is world building?
Well, let's start with a dictionary definition. World building is the construction of a world, especially a convincing fictional world for literature. So that's the official definition. However, there's a lot of facets to world building. I mean, it could be geographical, it could be, like I said earlier, making a map and putting your cities on it and referencing that and making sure everything stays consistent, which is important, but that's only a tiny little piece.
It is a
So,
tiny piece.
yeah, it's a tiny piece of everything that goes into building a world. Especially if you're working in, say, fantasy or sci-fi, where you're building multiple worlds that fall under, an umbrella of, whatever galaxy or that sort of thing. But if you're working from scratch on something new, it's geography, it's climate, weather, the creatures that live in the world, the people that live in the world, the cultures of all of those different people. Like, are they tribal and nomadic? Do they live in cities? Are they human? Are they not human? Are they, snakes with legs? What do you have in your world? So all of that are little tiny pieces in a giant puzzle that makes something convincing.
And I agree, but it's when we're world building, there's a couple concentric circles to look at.
Mm-hmm.
There's the world that your character immediately touches,
Mm-hmm.
right? The bed they sleep in, when they wake up in the morning, if they wake up in the morning, what do they do after they wake up? What do they do before
Mm-hmm.
they go to bed? And then there's a concentric circle outside of that of, what is the um, community they live in, and how does that community act, or
Mm-hmm.
what are the mores and morals of that, and the day to day of that world. And then you go out further and you get into maybe a country, and you go out further, you get into go out further, Earth, excuse me, a planet. You go out further, you have solar system. You go out further, you have universe. It depends upon where your world, the focus of your world. So Meg's world with her
Mm-hmm.
sci-fi is, really an outer circle. So there's a lot of inner circles to think about when you start talking about
Mm-hmm.
multiple worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. The circles are an interesting way to put it. I've heard it described as a pyramid
Hmm.
that starts with your main character as the tip and then just gets progressively larger ad infinitum.
Yeah.
Um, and
Now,
deciding where to stop in that scale is also important.
you can go forever and ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that's it's interesting that you put it that way, because something I was just thinking of saying was that, with my world building, I have definitely taken that approach where I've taken a character driven approach to my worlds and my stories, where I focus on the main character
Mm-hmm.
or characters and their emotional journeys, and then
Mm-hmm.
build the world out from there. But I've found, I'd really love to try the reverse and try from a top down, and build the world and then set the conflict within it and make the
Mm-hmm.
characters within that and see how that works, to make the
Well,
world more compelling, perhaps.
that's what I've had to do with, my whole premise of this world without um that hasn't been uh oh, come on, guys, why did I forget the words of my own world, that was never colonized, right? So I had to start with the whole world and say, what would it look like if, this was not colonized? I had to take things out from the real world. Here's the real world scenario. What things am I going to take out,
Mm-hmm.
and how would that be replaced?
Mm-hmm.
Which has been really interesting to work on. Um, so when we're talking about world building, we got to talk about the rules in this world. Um, Not only the magical world rules, right? Just the cultural rules. Also, I'm gonna, even the physical rules.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have two suns? Do you have, no moon? Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things play around with. But yes, it's been really interesting to start with. Okay, here's today's, 2024 in America, on Earth, and what do I have to take out, and what do I have to backfill to make my story,
Yeah.
to make my world.
Yeah, and incidentally, talking about the top down, that is how I build worlds for D&D games as a dungeon master,
Hmm.
because I do a lot of homebrew. I
Hmm.
don't use
Hmm.
published modules or things like that. You build from the outside in, because with a tabletop game like D&D, you're not in charge of the characters. You have a you build a setting for your players and they are in charge of the characters. So it's backwards to how a lot of people would build like a story or a novel, because normally you have an idea that revolves around a character and you build out from there. But coming in the other way, it's a different perspective and it's a different process, but if you do it one way or the other, it doesn't really matter, but maybe as an exercise, try doing it the other way. Just because a lot of times you can find the holes in your world by looking at it backwards. It's like editing and you start at the back and move to the front. Sometimes you spot the plot holes easier or find your proofing mistakes easier just because it's a different perspective.
Well, I was going to say, or versus top up or character to world versus world to character. There's also amazing worlds that are built around, like strictly around magic systems. So the magic is what
Mm-hmm.
comes first. And I've seen that done really, really well also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. You can build a world around any little detail. So if your trees are pink, you can build a world around that.
Why
It,
would
it
they
might
be
be
pink?
difficult, but you could do it. Yeah, exactly. Start with a Y. Maybe it's a different atmospheric composition. So, okay, that's different. How does that affect the creatures that live here? How does that affect the other plants? How does that affect the sentient races? How does that affect the climate? Like, there's so many different ways you can look at it, and you can start pretty much anywhere.
Okay, let me ask you a hard question.
Okay.
When we talk about writing in fantasy or speculative fiction, or some urban romantasy, somewhere in that realm, what is not world building? So what things have to be considered that are not world building?
I'd say the character arc is not necessarily world building. What I'm starting with, which what I typically start with in my story, and then the world comes later. So the character arc is one of the most crucial elements of story, right? That's what really carries it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's world building at all. It's
Oh,
kind of like
interesting.
the famous Sanderson quote is you can write a story about anything, right? And you can just take a modern story and that's what fantasy can be. It can be a romance, it can be a mystery, it can be a heist. Except why not add dragons?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the
Um,
only reason why there's dragons in um uh J.R.R. Martin's world is because his granddaughter said that she wanted a dragon in there. It's the only reason why there's dragons.
That granddaughter was a genius.
and then it
Yeah.
became
I hope she
absolutely
inherits
crucial to the
some
plot.
money.
Yep.
Yep. So, yeah, I would agree that specific character arcs would not count as world building. Plot, even to a point, would not
I would say,
necessarily count as world building. It can, but on a surface level, independent of the specifics of a particular plot, I would say no. Um, Hot take, I know.
I would say there's not much that's not world building. I mean, even how a character looks is
Yeah,
world building.
yeah. Well, like you have frog people and cat people and whatever else.
Well,
And that's
true.
something that is unique to Cobb. So yeah, that would count as world building.
But I'm
Or
even talking about someone's hairstyle.
yeah,
You know,
well,
it
see, and
has
that
to
goes
fit
back.
the world.
Yeah, that goes back to what I said about culture,
Hmm.
because even if you look at our world, certain cultures have certain beauty standards, or um, they tend to do their hair in certain ways, or wear certain makeup, or have tattoos, or not
Right.
have tattoos.
If I walked around with red mud in my hair slicked back, it's not
Yeah,
a thing that goes on here.
yeah, I don't think that would apply well in New England,
No.
but in some places that's normal. In some places they wrap brass tubes around their necks to make them longer. In some places
Mhm.
they punch 3 and 4 inch holes in their lips and do all sorts of strange things things that are strange to us, but to them are perfectly normal. So
So
it's
For
The
writing, I think that a huge factor in world building is language slash dialogue.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, it has a lot to do with tone, and tone can do a
Hmm.
lot for a world.
Absolutely.
Well, like an example of that, my first book, when I first wrote it, I refused to let anyone use contractions. I don't know why, but I just felt like it wasn't appropriate in a fantasy to have contractions. And then I started editing and it was awful. So I fixed it and it loosened everything up a ton and it felt so much more natural and so much more like relatable. But that was one of those little world decisions that I thought was a good idea and really wasn't.
I'll give you an example of where, this language thing can make the difference in worlds. The difference between, like a regular Star Trek TV show
Mm.
and Lower Decks.
Mm. Yep, that'll
Okay.
do it.
Yep.
They're both in the exact same physical world, but it's two totally different worlds because of how they can talk, what they can say in their dialogue.
Anyone who's ever worked in a commercial kitchen understands that intimately.
Yeah, you're
That
not
is such a great
wrong.
example, though, Xtina. Like,
That is a really good example. Oh, yeah, that's jarring. Um, yeah.
So, when we're talking about being a world building podcast, right, or something that focuses on this, on world building, what are some of the things we hope to bring to the people that want to listen? And what are some of the things we hope to accomplish for ourselves?
I would say asking the questions that give the world depth. Um, whether that's a political situation, whether it's a monetary situation, whether it's a trade situation, language, religion, when it rains, do crops grow out of the ground type situation. That that we don't have the ability to ask every single question ourselves. We don't think of them. So I love the idea of the what if scenario, to just brainstorm A, how your characters would react to certain situations, and B, get ideas for how to flesh out the world a little bit to make it A, believable, and B, interesting.
I I love having fun on this podcast with just being able to worldsmith, just sit there and just imagine all the things given this one um, scenario that's thrown at us. I agree with you. That is so fun. What about you, Derek? What do you hope to? What would you like this podcast to be for other people?
Well, like you guys, I love getting a chance to stretch my creative legs. Um, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's really not. But that and maybe just inspiring people to do the same because you think you have a world nailed down. You see it all the time in writing groups on Facebook or Reddit or wherever, but the ask me anything about my world.
Yeah.
You see it all the time and it's a fantastic exercise. I've done it a few times. I know other people have done it. Um and it makes you think, and that's what we're doing. So, but we're doing it in a little bit more of a specific way
Hmm.
because we're targeting that ask me anything into, but what about this?
Yep.
And it's if you've ever dealt with um like a development team or an engineering team or even a marketing team or anything like that, Meg, I know you've dealt with that.
Hmm.
um you're gonna get the brainstorm session at some point where everybody's sitting around with their coffee, or some of the ones I've been involved in, it was hard liquor. Um, Sitting around with whatever beverage and going, okay, well, we need to do this thing. How do we do it? And you get all the crazy ideas, and then eventually something is actually good. So that's really important for writers too.
It's
Like
really important.
you can't build a world in a vacuum. You have to be able to bounce it around off of somebody, even if it's Chat GPT or your friend that doesn't give a shit, or the random guy at the bar, the bartender. I've done that. Um, just you've got to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And asking yourself questions or letting people ask you questions is a great way to do it.
You know what I would love to is if our listeners, when we pose a question like this, if they would send us something, a voice snippet would be great, or a line or two that says, okay, this is what that question did for my world.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I was able to glean from it or learn from it or change because of it or move forward or
Yeah,
whatever. It would be great if we got the feedback from our listeners,
yeah,
um, our world building listeners, of like how this provoked something else.
yeah. Shoot us a Facebook message or an email, or um, even just leave a comment on the podcast episode wherever you found it, because we get notified about those.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But
I'd love to see some feedback like that. That'd be awesome.
yeah, it'd be great.
If you are a builder crafting your first universe, or a seasoned creator with realms under your belt, whether you be a D&D game master, a writer, an author, or just a storyteller, we would love to have for any worldsmith to join us on the What If South is Up podcast. So you can pitch it to us, your ideas, your thoughts, your worlds on whatifsouthisup.com, or just reach out to us on the Facebook page. We'd be honored to make your world the star of one of our episodes, or maybe a dozen.
We'd love your help too. Our What If list is always open for new imaginative scenarios. If you've got a unique twist or a world shaking idea, send it our way and we'll give you full credit. After all, who wouldn't love to have a free plug for their made up world, right? You can visit us on our Facebook page, as Derek had said a moment ago, or drop us a line at whysouthisup@gmail.com. We cannot wait to hear or see what you've dreamt up. Oh, that was fun.
That was fun. As always, I am Derek Hall. My website is DerekHallAuthor.com, and you can find me as D Hall Author just about anywhere. Meg, where can we find you?
So I have actually foregone the website temporarily. I decided to direct everything into a link tree because it seemed like that was where I was getting the most traction. But I am MJ Lindsay on pretty much all of the social media, so you can find my link tree that way to get access to all of my different affiliate sites and places to find my work.
Perfect.
Currently, I have uniquelyxtina.com as my website, but I may be following Meg's leadership there, and I may be foregoing mine as well for a little bit, but we'll see how it goes. In the meantime, you can always find me on the socials as uniquelyxtina.
Well, thanks everybody for listening and sticking around. As you can tell, we're making a little bit of a format pivot and trying to focus in on what we really want to talk about. So thanks for sticking around for the rocky transition. It's been fun.
Give us your feedback. Give us your feedback.
Yeah, all the feedback. Give me.
All feedback, please.
Give me your feedback.
This is not OnlyFans.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time on What If South is Up.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good night.
Good night.
You can find us on OnlyFans at